The main event, here we go. I'm super excited about this. So, MyLoan Dinh was born in Saigon, Vietnam, after resettling in Charlotte. She studied visual arts at UNC Chapel Hill and the School of Art and Design at Wollongong University in New South Wales, Australia. Her mixed media work explores porous boundary between personal and collective history. Reflecting on her experience as an immigrant and woman of color, her work often addresses everyday manifestations of cultural identity, memory, and displacement. She and her husband, Till, who we just saw perform for us, founder and artistic director of Moving Poets, have created projects in the USA and Germany. She is the founder of the international multidisciplinary arts project We See Heaven Upside Down, featuring 7 visual artists and 1 filmmaker of regional, national, and international recognition, and running May 3rd through June 15th at Elder Gallery of Contemporary Art. My fellow Charlotte creatives, here to speak to us on our global theme of inclusive, please welcome a true rising star in the art world, MyLoan Dinh, everyone. Come on up, MyLoan.
Spring Watching Pavilion. A gentle spring evening arrives, airily, unclouded by worldly dust. 3 times the bell tolls, echoes like a wave. We see heaven upside down in sad puddles. Love's vast sea cannot be emptied, and springs of grace flow easily everywhere. Where is Nirvana? Nirvana is here, 9 times out of 10.
Êm ái chiều xuân tới khán đài, lâng lâng chẳng bận chút chân nói ai. Ba hồi chiếu mộ chuông gầm sóng, một vũng tang thương nước lộn nói trời. Bể ái nghìn trùng khôn tát cạn, nguồn ân muôn trượng dễ khơi vơi. Nào nào cực lạc là đâu ta, cực lạc là đây 9 giỏi 10.
Good morning, friends. The poem you just heard was written by Hung Sung. She was an 18th century Vietnamese female poet. Her poem became the inspiration for the title of our international project, We See Heaven Upside Down. We See Heaven Upside Down is a creative dialogue responding to the contemporary challenges of displacement, migration, identity, and home. Essentially, it examines how we see ourselves and how we interact and share common space with others, especially ones that are different from us. But before I dive into the project, I want to share with you the experiences of inclusion and exclusion and how they shaped my life, my art, and the creation of the project. I was born in Saigon, Vietnam. In 1975, my father was in the South Vietnamese Navy working with the Americans. During the final days of the war, as the officers were shredding papers, they told my father to get rid of his uniform and any evidence that he worked there. In a split second, his identity was erased. Despite the looming danger, my father refused to leave his sick mother. She convinced him to escape with my mother, my brother, and I. Otherwise, he would be sent to a re-education camp or killed by the Viet Cong. We packed a few belongings, and he never saw his mother again. We fled on the last South Vietnamese Navy ship out, That was Ship 402. It was an old clunker that was meant for 3 to 5 tanks and 53 crew members. Instead, it carried about 1,000 civilians. We were crammed in like sardines. So thanks to the Vietnam War, I got my first all-inclusive boat ride. And we made it out to sea. The ship broke down, and we began to sink. That little red dot, that's me. This is me. Luckily, we were not alone, and we were transferred to another refugee ship over a narrow wooden plank. So even though U.S. military ships were nearby, Congress refused to give further evacuation orders. So for 6 days, we were forbidden to go to the Filipino or Guam waters and dock because our ships belonged to the now defunct South Vietnamese government. So we were stateless. Led by Navy U.S. officers on the USS Kirk, following their moral compass, they decided to take things into their own hands and would not allow us to perish at sea. Every ship lowered the Vietnamese flag and were given the American one, which the USS Kirk led us and 30 Vietnamese Navy ships and dozens of cargo and fishing boats sailed behind them under the protection of the U.S., and we finally were able to enter Subic Bay where camps were set up. So we stayed in 3 different refugee camps. The last stop was Camp Pendleton, also known as Tent City. This is me, and our first home in America, tent number 8, which we shared with 20 others. Eventually, we were sponsored by Pastor David Keck and his lovely family and the Lutheran Church and resettled in Boone. Later, we moved to Charlotte, where I grew up. I had a pretty happy childhood, despite the occasional racial slurs. Chink, ching chong, dink. I brushed them off and moved on. I went off to college and studied fine arts. A guy I was dating at the time invited me to a regatta, which I was really excited about because I had never been to one before. And I met his parents, and his mom asked me, "Where are you from?" And I said, "Vietnam." And she said, "Oh, you're one of those boat people." Then she turned her back and walked away. I felt really embarrassed and ashamed. She might as well have said to me, "You're trash." Somehow, my refugee experience made me insignificant and unwelcomed. Being stateless was the same as being worthless. So I wish I could tell you that that was the only experience I had like that, but it wasn't. So fast forward to the present. I am a visual artist. My experience as an immigrant and a woman of color has shaped how I approach my creative practice. As Matt said before, my work explores the porous boundary between personal and collective and the relationship between part and whole. Often I examine the individual and the communal othering. My work is primarily mixed media, installations, photographic collaborations, and performances. And I experiment with physically taking materials and deconstructing them and reconstructing new narratives. This work is called Our Collective History. This is me with some guys having lunch, a collaboration with Jeff Cravata. The photographic series is called Report Suspicious Activity. It's a response to rising anti-immigration sentiments. Who are we including and excluding as we define ourselves as a nation? And who gets to be American? Some images are serious and others ironic, and some are even absurd. So I like to stage negotiations between similarity and difference, collective and individual, which gets me to the project We See Heaven Upside Down. So how did it come about? In 2015, my husband, Till Schmidt-Rempler, founder of Moving Poets, and I were living and working part-time in Berlin. And during that time, we saw the pinnacle of the refugee crisis in Europe and the mass flight of Syrian refugees escaping war. We saw firsthand the generosity towards refugees, outpouring. It was amazing. And at the same time, fear and the rise of nationalism. So what could we do as artists to address these issues? Break down barriers through stories. So we brought together artists of different perspectives and disciplines and experiences to create a dialogue with the public. By having true and honest engagement, we seeked, learned, and listened from those of migrant and non-migratory backgrounds. So in Berlin, we had exhibitions and concerts and performances, public discussions, creative workshops. We broke bread with former refugees, artists, politicians, and neighbors. So the project continues to evolve. Each phase is called a migration. So far, we've had over 60 visual and performing artists, musicians, poets, filmmakers, and a lot of creatives collaborating with us. The fourth migration will open May 3rd through June 15th at Elder Gallery of Contemporary Art. Keeping with the multidisciplinary concept, there'll be an exhibition with performance concert, which you heard a little excerpt of it over here, film screening, and artist talks and conversations. So for this phase, we have a Syrian filmmaker, Delar Yusuf, several local and international musicians, composers, performers, and North Carolina poet Chuck Sullivan. 7 visual artists, Rosalia Torres Weiner from Mexico, Luis Caray from Switzerland, Nico Amortegui from Colombia, Susanna Riva from Germany, Michelle Gregory from Charlotte, Chinupa Hanskaluga from Santa Fe, and myself. Now, when we think about migration and displacement, it's natural to solely focus on the immigrant experience. But it was important for us to include those who have been internally displaced. One of our collaborators, Chinupa Hanskaluga, is a Native American artist born and raised on the Standing Rock Reservation. His work addresses indigenous identity. The LA Times featured an article about him and his Mira Shield project. It was inspired by women during the uprising in Ukraine. And the women took mirrors from their homes, handheld mirrors, into the streets to face the riot police. They held up the mirrors to the riot police, saying, "This is what you look like. Look at how you intimidate us. See for yourselves." The image of an enemy is often a reflection of ourselves. So Chinupa created an online video for people across the country to make safe, lightweight mirror shields and send them to Standing Rock so that the water protectors could shield themselves from high-pressured freezing water and rubber bullets. And at the same time, it showed the reflections of those attacking them. Now, I wish I could tell you about every incredible artist involved in this project, but my time is running out. So I just want to say a little bit more. We see Heaven Upside Down as more than a project. It is a call to action. Each artist has included with their work a personal suggestion of what you can do to change this current situation. I hope you can come and see for yourselves because you complete the dialogue. For more information, for dates and the 6 weeks of programming, visit the Moving Poets website. Now, before I wrap it up, I want to thank Matt, Tim, Dave, Whitby, and the entire Creative Mornings team for your hard work. Moving Poets supporters, all the collaborating artists, Elder Gallery of Contemporary Art for their courage and support in presenting Migration 4, our community partners, Carolina Refugee Resettlement Agency and International House, ASC Cultural Vision Grant, Re-Emprise Fund, Audience Media, the Blumenthal Performing Arts Center, because they are partnering with us for the full stage production of Heaven in February 2020. And of course, all of you for listening today. This is One Nation for All, and it's made from life jackets and whistles. Remember the story of my family's escape by sea and the U.S. flags? This is the inspiration for that work. This is about courage and compassion of Americans who look beyond politics and policy In those 6 days at sea, those Navy officers saved 30,000 lives, including mine, and I will be forever grateful. In closing, I wasn't going to get political, but I will address what I personally think is a divisive and backwards manifesto. Make America great again. What does that again mean? When was that, and who is it meant for? So we're going to have some audience participation. I'm going to recap some historical highlights, and I want to involve you. When I point to you all, we all say together, "Wasn't that great?" Okay, so let's try it. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Wasn't that
Great.
great? Here we go. All right. Imagine the again. Was it the time, by law, we were segregated by the color of our skin to sanction where we could live, where we could learn, where we could sit, eat, and go to the bathroom, who could vote?
Wasn't that great?
Was it the time that women were not allowed to decide the fate of our own bodies and reproductive rights?
Wasn't that great?
Was it the time that homosexuality was forbidden and one could not decide for oneself who could love or marry?
Wasn't that great?
Was it the time that Native American children were taken from their families and put into foster care to forget their tribal heritage? Wasn't that great? Was it the time that American citizens were put into internment camps only because of their ancestry? Wasn't that great? No, it wasn't. The great thing about the good old days is they're gone. That America, I cannot imagine moving forward. I cannot imagine it because I don't exist in it. I am excluded. My children, my family, and many of my friends are excluded. People I hope to get to know and love are excluded. I am not interested in an America being great. I want to live in a free democracy that recognizes truths, that acknowledges all of our history, that is inclusive and kind. This project dives into these challenges and brings back what we want you to see and experience and feel, which is our full humanity and all of our rich, vibrant colors. Despite our differences, together we can negotiate a common goal for a common good. So to quote the late historian, humorist, and civil rights activist Dick Gregory, we all evolve from the same stardust. Be kind to each other, be kind to a stranger, stay engaged, and vote. Thank you.